ahead and get started. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to your March meeting of the Alachua Astronomy Club. As always, we are in the Kika Silvapla Planetarium on the College of Santa Fe College. So thank you to our hosts, James and team, for allowing us to utilize this space. Tonight, you will do our general meeting of announcements and kind of goings-on with the club, and then shortly thereafter, we've got a little bit of a special presentation that's not listed here. Some of the work that Dave has been doing with our library telescope program, and then around 7:20, Rebecca will talk about art and astronomy. We'll do our typical break, and then we have Dr. Susan Milbrath here to talk about some Mayan astronomical tables. So kind of a cultural night tonight, so it should be good. Well, currently, as of since February 10th, we stand at 242 members. We have a few new folks with us. Philip Hancock, I believe he was here last month, but Philip, if you're here, you want to identify? No? How about Daniel? Are you here today? Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining me. And then we actually have one of a brand new lifetime members, Mr. Rice. Are you here? No? Well, he's got a lifetime sentence with us, so hopefully we'll catch him here in a future one, and we certainly appreciate that contribution. Do we have any guests with us here tonight? Welcome. What's your name, sir? All right. Welcome. Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Any others? Oh, you just joined. Awesome. Well, thank you. Welcome. Very cool. So it's always exciting to see so many new faces, so welcome. First. So if you haven't renewed, now's the time to do so, because technically your membership has lapsed. We haven't gone through the process quite yet of can everybody hear me? I'm seeing in the chat, but I got some thumbs up earlier, so I think we're good to go. So it is membership season. We haven't cleared the rolls yet of anybody who hasn't done that, but just kind of a caution that if your membership lapses, you will no longer get the communications from the club. But I want to make sure to tell everybody that the monthly meetings still remain open to the public. So should, for whatever reason, you want to discontinue your membership but still come to those meetings, you're certainly more than welcome to that. So we have about 90 folks that are still yet to renew for whatever circumstances. If you have any questions, if you've had any issues, please reach out. We want to make sure to help you if you need help with that. It was brought up last month as kind of a question in how to renew or change, so I wanted to at least show this slide one more time. On your profile, when you log into the page, you'll see your kind of information and then your membership level. For anybody that has lapsed, it'll say renew, kind of in the red box, where mine says change. So if I wanted to change levels, I can certainly do that and become a lifetime member, which I probably ought to do at some point. But that's where you would do that. So if you have any questions with that, please be sure to let me know. One of the benefits, of course, is access to our members' lending library. And I know I've teased it the last couple times. Well, the S30 Pro is now available. So anybody who wants it, it's here. See me at the break, kind of first come, first served. So if you have a desire to take that home with you, you'll see some of my Winter Star Party data on there. You're welcome to delete it or do with it what you will. I think the video playing is one of the evenings at the Winter Star Party here a few weeks ago, just a time lapse. So it's a really kind of a fun toy. And then something that actually also just came in the mail from SV Boney is one of their new 535 camera lenses. It's a tiny little box. And inside, if anybody wants to see it, I can't give it out, but if you want to see the smallest imaging train you've ever seen, it makes the smart scope look big. This is a standard ASI camera, but it also can fit on a DSLR camera. So if you have an astronomy camera or a DSLR camera, this will soon be added to our members' lending library, because I know there's been a lot of folks talking about either doing wide field or not having a telescope, so we're trying to fill those gaps in the library where we can. And then just early this morning, the clubs signed up with an affiliate program with SV Boni. So any purchase that you make through our link, which is posted to our website or to social media, which I believe is posted on Facebook, the club actually will earn a commission from that. We'll see about 4% of that sale come back to the club, and that just allows us to invest more in equipment, modernizing the facilities, and just all those other things that we want to try to do, the scholarships and whatnot. So it doesn't cost you any more, and then also along the way we will get coupon codes from them. I actually have an email waiting to get kind of our first round of those. So hopefully you can save a little money and support the club with a purchase that you may already be making. So information is on the website. We have now partnerships with ZWO, Dwarf Lab, and now SV Boni. So kind of an exciting little development. On the ATM side, or our technical series for any new members, been working with Tom on kind of developing some programming. We haven't quite nailed down dates, but kind of one of the first ones that he wants to knock out is working on customizing an eyepiece case and kind of making it go from just a standard box to something you might want to use. I actually kind of haven't told him about that. He's got a demo version he's working on. Part of the project that I worked on not too long ago was putting a battery in some red lights in my case so it can travel and just be rechargeable so you can use it in the night as well. That's something that we can probably tie in because I've got some extra electronic components, because if you buy on Amazon, you can't buy just one of something, you have to get 30 LEDs. So we'll hope to kind of support that. If you bring your case, we'll help make it something from there. Also on the books, we're kind of waiting for Rosemary Hill to figure out their opening sequence and kind of check in with Francisco, but we still have on the books to do a radio astronomy program. So we're hoping to tie that in with a future star party out at Rosemary Hill. The weather has been less than favorable with our last few attempts, so hopefully we'll get one of those. Soon. The Far Out Journal Club. So we have some news and more news. We are working with Rich, who is kind of finalizing some of the last dates. We had Raider Lane, who is a park ranger out at Grand Canyon. We had him set for the last fall, but government shutdown being what it was and their lack of ability to do outreach during that time, we had to put that on hold. So now that things have opened back up, at least in both worlds, we're trying to finalize a date. And we hope to announce that sooner than later. On a second note, Rich, if anybody that doesn't know, so he has moved up to Maryland, and in the last year or two has been contributing to the club from afar. But as he has found a home club and some of the obligations that he is asking to step away. So this will be the final episode that he is involved in. That also being said, this is the final episode of the Far Out Journal Club, unless we find someone to fill the gap. So anybody who's interested in taking on that project and assisting with it, I promise you, you will have help along the way. Really what we need somebody to do is do the scheduling, is to reach out to any potential guests. We have a lot of people who know a lot of people, so we can help network. We can some time and some energy to do that. And you can do that from anywhere. It's mostly remote. All our sessions are on Zoom. So we really, we think through a team effort, but we just need somebody who can really kind of step up and take that on with some help. So please reach out to me if you're interested. Even if you're on the fence, come, and as Lisa says, we'll twist your arm. So hopefully we can get some done. Payne's Prairie, speaking of the weather, canceled. So that was kind of lost. Rosemary Hill, we tried twice and 3 times. So the weather's just not been our friend recently. So I had a great night last Saturday at Chiefland by myself in the clouds and the storm. So yeah, well, we try. So hey, sometimes months it'll be what it'll be. So I wanted to showcase some pictures of the Winter Star Party. I've got a great photo of Gay with ZWO's Sea Star mascot. So a couple of the folks from that team were present all week, and Gay was one of the lucky few to catch the mascot out and about on the beach. So I wanted to make sure to highlight those pictures along with a couple others that I took. Presentation that I gave on the very small array project that we work on. I hate self-promoting stuff, but they do have an astrophotography contest, so we captured the first place prize on that. So that's a picture of about 12 hours of the rosette using my C-Star S50, and that's a project that I had worked on tirelessly. I've done that process multiple times to try to be able to do honor to it and follow the rules and use data that I only captured there, but wanted to make sure that I was prepared, because we were able to win it last year, get it this year. My hope is that one of you will go to the Winners Star Party next year, because it is a heck of an event, and I would like to keep that trophy in the club. So please, somebody come down and participate. So I have to give thanks again this year to the folks that encouraged me to do it, because I'm still one that I won't put that stuff out there, but those that encourage me to do it. So please, this is me encouraging you. Even if you aren't confident in your work, put it out there. You never know what may happen. So we've talked about the crappy weather and some stuff like that. What do we have coming up? Well, in light of that, the forecast, I'm not going to say looks good, because I don't want to jinx things, but Lisa was kind enough to allow us to come back and have a makeup date for last week. So this Saturday out at Chiefland, we are going to attempt a star party again, with the sun rising setting a little bit later now with daylight savings. Sunset will be around 7:38. So we do ask, it's not a hard ask, but that you arrive a bit before sunset. Just if you've not been there before, it's a big place. There's lots of resources. We want to make sure that we can show you how to use the field, how to exit the field, where to park in case you are going to leave at night. Driving on the field is strictly prohibited, so we want to make sure that you're able to get in, kind of maneuver around, figure out where you're going to be, and then how we can kind of plan for your exit and make sure that we're not disturbing the astronomers on the field and those that own property there. The moon will be rising pretty late, so we kind of get the benefit of almost 2 new moon weekends this time around, just with how things fall. So it'll be it should hopefully, if the clouds behave, a really good night. And this is prime Messier Marathon season. Those that don't know, all 110 objects in the Messier catalog, in theory, it's a challenge, are available to you in one night. So I'm going to, with my 16-inch Daub, try to get as many targets as we can as late as anybody wants to go. So if anybody wants to stay up all night, I'll stay up all night with you, and we'll try to capture as many targets as we can. So I'm excited to get that out. That'll be that telescope's first trip out to Chiefland for me. So I'm chomping at the bit to get some use out of it, and I'm sure my wife's excited to have it move out of the garage and out to its home at Chiefland. So we're excited to get it out there. Rosemary Hill. Again, we've had those 2 strikes, so hopefully we're gonna try round 3 sometime in early April. Just a reminder to anybody, that is an open house that we support UF. So the Astronomy Department welcomes out the community. They invite us to essentially work it, to volunteer it. So we want to make sure that members that are contacted to participate, come bring your equipment, but anybody else that is a member, you are certainly welcome to come. It is a free event to the community, but we want to make sure that you get a ticket. Don't just show up, because they will turn you away, because you won't get the opportunity to come and say, hey, I'm a member of the Alachua Astronomy Club. They'll turn you away at the gate if you don't have that ticket. And those tickets are time gated to certain arrival times, because the field or the area is limited. So we want to make sure to give you that warning that please, by all means, come out, but get a ticket. Also an exciting one, we do have a time and date for the AAC garage sale and swap meet. That will take place on Saturday, April 4th at 10 a.m. out at Newberry Star Park. If you haven't had a chance to go out there, it is at the Easton Sports Complex. We do have our home facility back there. A couple members will be going out here in the very near future to kind of go through and identify equipment that we can sell to members. Usually it's given at great discount. I know I got a 10-inch Daub for a couple $100. I think Jerry made me pay a little bit more through the bidding process. So how that works is from 10 to 11:30, we'll basically treat it silent auction. If you're the only one that bids on it, congratulations, it's yours. Take it with you and enjoy. If multiple people put a bid down at 11:30, we'll kind of go through those that have had multiple bids, and then we'll do it live auction. So we'll treat it right there. So you're still guaranteed, you're still likely to get a great price on stuff, but then we also encourage you to bring your own equipment. You never know what you may have that you don't have interest in that somebody else will. So by all means, bring some stuff out. If anybody has any teleview eyepieces, I'll probably take some off your hands. But please, bring some stuff out, have some fun, and then AAC will be providing lunch. It's looking like pizza's the choice, but we'll play that by ear. So make sure to sign up on the website so that we know how many people we're buying for, and then also check back on that website to see the equipment that we have. It's not posted right now, but we hope to do that here in the next week or so, that you'll have plenty of time to check your bank accounts, raid the wallets, dig for coins under the couch, wherever you got to do to come out and get some new equipment. So we hope to do that. And with that, I'll bring Dave up for a presentation on his work with the Library Telescope program. And then, folks, if you guys can raise the lights pretty high.
Just so they can see the slides, yeah.
My pockets are too big.
Testing, okay. Hey, I remember you guys. Okay. The Library Telescope program was initiated by the New Hampshire Astronomical Society in 2008. And the purpose was for them to donate telescopes to their local libraries, and then the library can treat it just like a book. Their patrons could come in and check out a telescope. Well, the program grew. There's 1,133 libraries that participate in 9 countries. So that little old club started a really cool thing. And the purpose, as you can see, is to empower libraries to spark curiosity, expand access to astronomy, and foster community engagement through hands-on telescope lending, putting the stars within reach for all. So the standard that they established is a 4.5-inch Dobsonian, because it's compact, it's easy to move around, it's easy to use, and the standard was also with a zoom eyepiece, so you don't have to be swapping eyepieces. So it's just the perfect telescope for that program. And 10 years ago, our club donated one that we got from the Astronomical League. You'll see a slide about their involvement in the program here. Where's my down arrow? Down, 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 down. There we go. We plan to donate 1 telescope to each of the 12 branches of the Alachua County Library District. Some of those will be donated to our club, and we'll show you one of those tonight. Some of them our club will purchase. Now, we're not going to do that all at once. We're going to protract that out over a year or two. We want to make sure we don't harm our budget. And then once a year, we might get a telescope from the Astronomical League because they have a drawing, and I've already submitted our application for that, and I believe they do the drawing in July. So 10 years ago, our club got one from the Astronomical League, and it went to the Newberry Library. And we have Marlon Day here tonight. He's the head of the Newberry Library, and we're going to present this telescope to him. The one that was given to them last year, Marlon tells me it got lots and lots of use, to the point where it just died. It got fixed 4 times or something like that. And part of the problem might have been that there wasn't a case, so we got a case for you too, and that'll help out a lot. So any folks out there that have like a zoom eyepiece that you're not attached to anymore, you know, if you want to donate it for that program, we'd love to have it. Or if you even have the appropriate kind of telescope, you know, that would be cool too. So we got this donated to us a couple weeks ago. It's a little different. It's a little smaller than the standard, but it's a 90 millimeter f13.8. So Marlon, the customers might say, This is kind of a narrow field of view, so get feedback from them, and if they're having trouble finding stuff, we'll eventually swap it out for the wider field of view for you. But it was donated by Michael Denman of St. Augustine. I drove it over there and I got this picture of him, and I cleaned it up and got it all set up, and then we added a brand new zoom eyepiece. And Marlon, why don't you come on up, bring the lights up just a little bit here, not too much.
We will.
Okay. And then I will quickly put that in the case here. And we'll be all set. And there's a tripod I'll show you in a few minutes.
Okay.
What that's all about. And there you go.
Thank you so much, Dave.
You bet.
You act like you've done this before. Do you want to do the rest?
No.
No?
You got it.
I try. Well, sorry, you're stuck with me. But Dave, thank you. I know it's a tremendous amount of work hunting these things down, so thank you. We're excited to see how this program continues on. And I always want to make sure to highlight some member astrophotography. If you don't send it to me and you post it online somewhere, I'm going to consider that fair game. I remember Dave would always find people's photos online, so I'm going to do the same thing. So by all means, share any photos you take, even if you capture it with a cell phone. This was Jerry's shot of the eclipse with his Canon EOS R6 Mark II. So please reach out, share those photos. We want to make sure to highlight some of the work that everybody is doing. This was my capture of 2 hours on Eta Carina down at the Winter Star Party. That target rises, I think, no more than 5 degrees above the horizon. So in the whole week of attempts, and I got there a little bit early, I got 2 hours of usable data, and that's what I was able to pull off with my little 80 millimeter refractor. So it can be better, but that's what I got. And then Jamie, one of our pros, did 40 hours of mono imaging on the Cone and Phosphor nebulae. So he doesn't know it, but I stole this off Facebook. I usually text him after the fact. I prefer to ask for forgiveness after the fact than apologize ahead of time. It's just a great shot. I hope it translates. If you don't get a chance to do that, I may see about posting that on our social media so you can really see some of the detail, because it's just incredible. And then I always want to make sure to highlight some of the things that are happening in the night sky. As I mentioned previously, we are in prime Mesoamerican season because the moon rises so late. This weekend we kind of get that 2-for-1, but kind of that prime date is the highlight of new moon in the month of March, which takes place on the 18th. So that following weekend on the 21st is your prime time to head out and try to capture as many of those Messier objects as possible. Another kind of interesting happening is kind of later on this month, Venus will get very near the moon right as it's kind of setting for the night. So there's some interesting images to be had. This is actually a shot I took with I think it was my Dwarf Mini. We just happened to be looking up down at the Winter Star Party and go, what's that so close to the moon? And actually we all pulled our Stellarium apps and looked, and it turns out that was actually Mercury, very close. And if I'd have been paying attention enough to the conversations, apparently it did occult the moon right above the horizon. So if I were better at my job, I would have a better photo, but hey, we get what we pay for. Wanted to make sure to prove that. So volunteers, you get what you get. So you'll have to work with me on that one. And that's all I have. Are there any announcements that anyone would like to bring up to the group? No? Nothing? Alrighty. Well, I think it's time. As I said, we find photos from anywhere, so if you post it on Facebook, it's fair game. So Rebecca, if you want to pop up and do your members' corner about art and astronomy.
That's going to be super loud being right here on the
It
shirt.
probably will. There is a clip if you want to like clip lower. So your mute slider's right here if you want to pocket that. And then you can clip wherever you like. Some people even just hold the thing if you think you're going to be really hot. And I'm going to Alt-Tab out so that you can make sure you have your version all ready to roll. And then I'm going to take this, like your keys are just real small ones right here in the corner.
Okay.
Right there. If you need a light, there is one right there.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's awful bright.
Hi. So I get to talk to you guys about a little pet project of mine that I'm super excited about, which is art and astronomy. So, make sure I hit the right button. So both art and astronomy are things that I've been absolutely in love with for my entire life. And as an artist, astronomy has always kind of been working its way into my art even since the very beginning. But the problem is that I always felt super awkward, especially in high school, because all of the science people, all of the science people weren't really interested in art, and all of the artistic people didn't really care that much about science. So I always felt a little bit awkward about that, but I thought, it's okay, I like what I like, and that's fine. So I spent about 10 years with that mindset until I found a book by Nia Imara called Decoding the Cosmos. And she talks about how the fact that more recently there is a split between art and science, but that was not always the case. So we're going to go back 17,000 years to the Lascaux cave paintings. So these are back in southwest France, and even though they depicted kind of the everyday life of the peoples there, astronomy worked its way into that. So if you look above that bowl on the right, you'll see 7 black dots, and those are interpreted to be the Pleiades star cluster. The second thing is a little bit harder to see, but there's a V shape in the face of that bowl, and that is identified with the Hyades bullseye cluster, which is in the constellation Taurus. And then if you go over to the left, there are 4 dots kind of in the back of the other bowl, and those are identified with the belt of Orion. So then, going back to the early Bronze Age, we have the Nebra sky disk. And this was used either for religious or agricultural purposes, but this is the first representation of a specific astronomical phenomenon that we can confirm, because with the Lascaux cave paintings, it could be, it hasn't been fully confirmed, but this is for sure. We have what could be a crescent moon and the sun, or it could be a crescent moon and a full moon. And then kind of above those two in the middle, you see those 7 stars in the circle. That is also the Pleiades star cluster. So then we have the Bio tapestry, and this depicts Halley's Comet at perihelion at the time of the Battle of Hastings. And so this is possibly the oldest known depiction of Halley's Comet, and it's kind of up there in the right corner. And I think what was really cool about this one is it not only combines the art of the tapestry making with the history and the science of astronomy, but that comet was at the time seen as a sign of doom to the king. So it also kind of works around maybe a little bit of mythology or a little bit of culture. So then we have the harmony of the world. This was something that was published by Kepler in 1619, and his theory was that musical harmonies existed within the positions of the planets, and that harmony was produced not just by the planets' positions, but by the relationship between the distances of the planets from the sun and their orbital periods. So this created ratios, and then he used those ratios to create music. And then it was later sonified, so it was later turned into music by Laurie Spiegel in 1977. And it was chosen by Carl Sagan as the opening track on Voyager's Golden Record. So something all the way from 1619 by a scientist got to go eventually on Voyager, which was really cool. So what in the world happened? Because nowadays it seems like there's a much bigger split. I can't remember the name of it now. I'm so sorry. There was a time period in which this split happened. And so at first, science, art, religion, someone said it? Renaissance. I think it was close to the Renaissance. That one, yes, Reformation. Thank you. So science, art, religion, philosophy, and humanities were all kind of the same thing before that time. The words that they used to describe them were craft or skill or knowledge. So, you know, they all kind of got lumped into the same thing, but during that period, they all kind of started to take their own definitions. So science became more about logic and about objectivity, whereas art became more about creativity. But not to worry, there were still very artistic scientists out there. So here we have Etienne Trouvelot. Please forgive me if I pronounced that very incorrectly. We have astronomical drawings. So he was an astronomer and an entomologist, and he ended up publishing about 50 scientific papers and was credited with discovering the veiled spots on the sun. And in this same busy lifetime as a scientist, he was able to make at least 15 pastel prints of astronomical phenomenon. And these were the coolest ones I found, but I'm telling you, all of them were absolutely phenomenal. Then we have Gustav Holst, The Planets, debuted in 1918 as a 7-movement orchestral suite of the planets in our solar system. If you've been to the planetarium lately, you will see the absolute masterpiece that is this movement. Each movement is named after a planet and its astrological character. So the cool thing about this is that it works in the culture and the mythology along with the science of the planets and the beauty of music. And then several bands in the 1970s paid tribute to the planets or to the music to inspire their own music. This one is one of my favorites. It is Alan Bean's paintings. Alan Bean was the 4th man to walk on the moon in the Apollo 12 mission in 1969. Upon retirement, after he had been one of 12 men on the moon, his idea of how to continue his life after doing something that incredible was, I'm going to paint my memories. So we get these epic representations of the things he saw, like Earthrise, or like an astronaut selfie. That's pretty awesome. So I think that's really beautiful that that's how he chose to communicate his experiences when he went to the moon. Then we have astronaut Katie Coleman, who is also an amateur flutist, and she collaborated from the International Space Station with Ian Anderson, who is the founder of Jethro Tull. And they decided to do the first Earth-space duet with the flutes to commemorate 50 years of space exploration. So they played a portion of the song Boree, an arrangement which Anderson and Jethro Tull performed during their 1969 U.S. tour, as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin stepped on the moon. This one is definitely my favorite. So this is the Chandra X-ray telescope sonification. And what scientists with this telescope did was they took the visual data that they got from the telescope and they decided to turn it into sound. So the picture you see here is the Sagittarius A star composite of infrared and X-ray wavelengths. Sagittarius A star is the black hole at the center of our galaxy. And then they use this visual data, they use the X-ray to be played as more of a synthesizer and the infrared to be played as a bass. So, check this out. Hold on. Gotcha, thank you.
You may hold your mic up to it. You pop it off. A little bit further back. Yeah, don't get too close.
Right? So that's actually my ringtone, and I get to wake up to that every morning, which if you want an absolutely magical way to wake up in the morning, definitely recommend going to the website, downloading one of the sonifications, and your morning will be a million times better. So, and then back to that book I was talking about earlier, Painting the Cosmos by Nia Amara. She is an astrophysicist and an artist, and she studies star nurseries, but she kept running into this problem where she's trying to study this 3D object on a flat screen. So what she did was she used her knowledge of art to 3D print these star nurseries so that she could study them in a little bit more in depth. And the cool thing is this is her portrait that she did of herself touching the stars, and then now she gets to hold these star nurseries in her hand to study them. And one of my favorite quotes from her is, "Science is necessary for life, but art makes it worth living." So what's so cool about the combination of science and art? So to me, art is a shared experience that we can all appreciate. It's something that brings us together, kind of no matter your situation, whether you live in the country and you can see the stars, or whether you live in the city and you see maybe two. Whether you have access to telescopes, whether you are more interested in the science and the data, or whether you're interested because it's pretty. And one thing I really love about art is that it also makes astronomy very accessible. So things like those sonifications, or like the planets and these orchestral movements, is for people who might not have access to the visual astronomy, they do have access to still experience the universe through these sonifications. And another thing that I think is cool, I couldn't find any examples in here, but sculptures. I think of something like a sculpture of the moon so that you can get the tactile sense and experience it that way. So art just kind of has a way of giving everyone a place in astronomy and kind of making everyone feel welcome, even if they thought that perhaps they didn't belong because maybe they couldn't experience it the same way. And it has very tangible effects. So one of my favorite examples that I love telling is the Hubble Space Telescope. The Hubble Space Telescope had a mission that was going to get canceled because of the Columbia disaster, and it was its last repair mission. But it was the people and the public who absolutely fell in love with the Hubble Space Telescope because of these beautiful images that we were getting that helped get that decision reversed and helped get Hubble serviced, and it's still giving us beautiful images to this day. And then a more recent example of bringing the public into astronomy is how when NASA was threatened with these recent budget cuts, how it was space advocates who were talking to their representatives that helped us get a better budget for NASA. So I think it's a really cool tool to be able to use art in astronomy to make it more accessible, make it friendlier for people who maybe don't know as much about the science, but they still want to get involved. And I just think it's a really beautiful thing to be able to use those skills and those crafts to show the world more about astronomy. And in general, it is our uniquely human way of experiencing the cosmos. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
That was very cool. Don't go too far. No. Awesome. Ooh. Well, I know for one, I will be looking up some of these resources, and I think I may have a new ringer because my wife hates my ringtone. So I want to make sure we will post this on the YouTube channel here shortly thereafter in case there were some references that you wanted to revisit. But we want to make sure, as always, as our token of appreciation, we have an uncirculated Vera Rubin quarter. And thank you for your presentation, and thank you very much. I think we've had the best one so far this year, so thank you. I think I can say that to Orlando. Sorry, Orlando, we got beat. But hey, kudos on booking it. So these are, for anybody that's new, I always want to make sure everybody knows that members' corners are your chance to come up and see the room from a different view, but also pick a topic that you either are really passionate about or one that you have absolutely no idea about, and share it with the group. I think you'll find it's a really rewarding experience, and the club is nothing but supportive. So we encourage you to, if you have interest in that. I know Jerry will be doing his talk next month, so please reach out to Orlando and come on up. It's fun. We don't bite too hard. And I think for the first half, that's about all I have. So let me pull this back up and just confirm that we're going to get through there. And that's all I have. So we... And on that note, we'll see you in a few minutes. Right, yeah. All righty, everybody. I think we'll get back for the second half of the meeting, and I will introduce our presenter. Looks like we got the last couple folks taking their seats. So we have Dr. Susan Milbrath with us, Emeritus Creator of Latin American Art and Archaeology at the Florida Museum of Natural History, and an affiliate faculty member of the School of Art and Art History at the University of Florida. To her credit, she has over 100 publications. Her Star Gods of the Maya, Astronomy, Art, Folklore, and Calendars has remained in print for over 25 years, and her most recent books include Decoding the Codex Borgia, if I'm saying that right, Visual Symbols of Time and Space in Ancient Mexico, and Birds and Beasts of Ancient Mesoamerica, American Symbolism in Postclassic Period. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce our main speaker tonight, Dr. Susan Milbrath. And I will pop her over to you.
Well, am I too loud?
Oh, no, you're great.
This opening slide, if you look down the tunnel, you'll see the structure as it used to be long ago, when it was colorful and
There's a laser pointer for you if you
okay,
want to point to
yeah.
There's a little button on the
Yeah.
top.
Well,
It was there. It was malfunctioning.
failure. That's all right. We'll do without it. You can see, looking down that tunnel view, that inside this mound that looks like a little hill, they found an amazing room or series of rooms that have to do with astronomy, and it's actually considered to be the workshop of astronomers. I wanted to credit the dissertation by Franco Rossi, who was one of the original excavators of the site, and it was only discovered in 2010. And it was the subject of a science article, of course, because it was so exciting. But a lot of these images are from his dissertation. Okay. So first I just want to give you some background, because some of you might not know much about where the Maya lived even. There's considered to be three major regions: southern, central, and northern. The northern area in Yucatan is where a lot of people visit most often. The Beten, which is in the central area, is a bit more difficult to get to, and so tourists are less likely to go there. And the highlands is essentially a more even remote from tourism, at least, and there's some wonderful sites there, but there are many rivers and streams in the areas of the central and southern area, but not so much so in the Yucatan area, where they depend on cenotes for water. The highlands area can be up to 1,000 feet over sea level, so it's quite high. And the lowlands are, as they sound, kind of like Florida, pretty low down and very, very mostly flat. As you see, for instance, in Yucatan, the only real rise is the Puc Hills that are up in the upper left of Yucatan. There are no rivers whatsoever in that area, and as I said, cenotes are the area where you look for the water sources. The central area of the Beten and to the east of Belize has what's called the Maya Mountains, and they're really not very high, but it's still a rise that you can see on this map. The history is very long, of course, in the area, and mostly we're going to be dealing with what is called the Classic Period, which is 250 to 900. But the Post-Classic Period is perhaps, in terms of astronomy, equally interesting because that is an area where we have quite a bit of information related to astronomy in painted books. There are only around 3 of them survive, but you have things such as astronomical tables for eclipses and tables for the synodical cycle of Venus, but all intricately related with religious imagery. So it, as J.R. Thompson said, astronomy in the Maya area is really astrology, because they were hoping to predict the future in their calendar cycles. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. We're not going to get into the calendar much, but you're going to say, well, where does this all come from? Where do we know these dates and all of that? We have long count inscriptions, as they're called, that essentially count baktuns, katuns, tuns, and unials, and kins, which are like days. And so it's kind of a cumulative total of numbers that are shown here in the Leiden plaque. This is one of the early classic examples where we can actually see the number 8 written with a vertical bar and 3 dots right below the top of it. And another number, 14, written as 2 bars and 4 dots, and essentially 3, 1, and 12. So this is some of the ways we know about chronology. Okay. The next kind of calendar periods we have are what are called calendar rounds, and those have to do with a 365-day year and a unique 260-day calendar that actually unifies Mesoamerica. In other words, all the cultures of the pre-conquest period used a 260-day calendar, the same calendar, but they had different names for the day signs based on whether it was Nahuatl from central Mexico, the Aztecs, or Maya, and the Maya languages have multiple subdivisions, almost 28, I believe. So we're not going to have any uniformity in terms of the names, but you will have uniformity in terms of the types of calendar periods. And the origin of the 260-day calendar is much disputed, but a lot of people think it has to do with the gestation cycle, the human gestation cycle, the period of pregnancy when counted from the first mist period. So it's kind of, again, like astrology. They wanted to predict what would happen to the human fetus, and based on these auguries that are associated with specific day signs. Now we come to what the subject matter is here, so that you see how really complex visually all of this is. And this is one of the images that you saw through the tunnel. It's the Xulunth ruler, who now we know what his name is. We know that he was pretending to be a god, and his name in Mayan would be Yahweh Chan Kinich. Kinich meaning sun, essentially a reference to the sun god. But his impersonation was of a deity called First Wind Maize with Obsidian. And the interesting thing about him is that he wears a scorpion tail. So it ends up that he is actually wearing the constellation Scorpius on his back. And this is one of the few overlaps that we have with Western constellations. And we know this from, this is a scorpion constellation from the Paris Codex, which is a post-classic codex, where we have a zodiac of 13 constellations. In this case, the mural caption tells us what's going on in the image and and a date, a calendar round date, in the 365-day year, but also combined with a 260-day period, you get a cycle of 52 years. So with a 52-year cycle, of course, things repeat, but if you have a long count inscription, such as I've shown you an example from the Leiden plaque, you can actually pretty much date these calendar round periods. Now, this is not anything that we're going to go into in much detail, because we're not, but I want you to know how many hieroglyphic texts they have found in this room, and it's not the end of it. There are 56 numbered ones, but they were drawing over and over again on the same template. So these are the ones that they have numbered so far. And because it was considered to be a school for astronomers, apparently, they were taking notes and putting new information all the time. So the one that is highlighted in red here is the caption that goes with the scene of the scorpion, what I'm calling the Scorpion King. Then also, this is hard for you to see, but each of the numbered texts here, the 56 numbered texts, are here in red, have to do with dates or in some cases names, but most often the dates are what are important for in terms of astronomy here. So first, the text 9A in red here is the royal god impersonator that I just mentioned, and we have a date for that. When did he impersonate this wind god Obsidian? February 12th, 749. Franco Rossi, in a most recent publication, concludes that the first wind deity is associated with the whole agricultural season, and the mural refers to a New Year's ceremony incorporating this deity toward the start of the agricultural season in February. And this deity plays a role throughout the dry season, in line with the breadth of the Scorpion constellation's visibility. So he was playing that role throughout the agricultural season. What I have contributed to this conversation, shall we say, is discovering the role of Jupiter in a lot of these texts that had, when it was first published in Science magazine, Science, not just Science, I guess. It was not, Jupiter wasn't even mentioned. But fortunately, I think a new publication that I came out with is convincing that the date that is used here, February 12th, 749, is also the date that Jupiter and Saturn were in the constellation Scorpius. So the king is impersonating, more specifically, like a sky map. I believe he represents the ruler himself wearing the Scorpion constellation on his back. Jupiter is the king of gods in ancient Rome, and is also the king of the gods as Zeus in ancient Greece, and Marduk in ancient Mesopotamia. Jupiter events are apparently important in the lives of classic Maya rulers, who often appear with the insignia of Kawil. This goes back to something that I published in my Star Gods of the Maya book back in 1999. It's taken me this long to bring other people aboard, but it's now, I think, more widely accepted. I propose that Kawil embodies Jupiter based on the pattern of dates associated with the classic period texts. Kawil's name can be read as Tahil, and the word for obsidian, which is connected with Tohil, the god of lightning, who was the head of the Quiche Maya lineage at the time of the conquest. Now, I find it really strange and awe-inspiring that apparently Jupiter was a god of lightning and thunder among the Maya, because, of course, that's his role in some respects in the Old World. Kawil is also repeatedly named in texts that record an 819-day cycle associated with a number of Jupiter and Saturn events in the classic Maya period, again 250 to 900, mostly found on monuments. The drawing on the right you see has mostly monuments from the Classic period, but on the top row you have images that are from post-classic codices, like the one I just opened up for you. It has been discovered recently by people who actually, one or two, live in Gainesville, Vicki Bricker, and published recently on this that the 819-day count is when multiplied by 20, will bring all the synodical periods of all the commensurates, in other words, links together all the synodical periods of the visible planets. To do this, however, you have to adjust a little bit. The Maya used whole numbers because they didn't have fractions. So 780 days for Mars, 399 days for Jupiter, 378 for Saturn, all close to the actual synodical periods of the superior planets, but less accurate for the inferior planets because Mercury is given a figure of 117 days rather than 116, and Venus 585 rather than 584, and of course Venus is not exactly 584, it's 583 point something or other. So they just didn't use fractions, so they tried to figure out how to make these whole numbers work in an observational sense for shorter periods of time, like the ones that they use in the codices. So returning to the Xulunth texts, we're going to look at essentially 5 different texts for you to see what kind of complexity and also the kinds of things they were interested in. And then this schematic drawing shows you the locations of some of these texts. For instance, the one that was featured in Science was text 50, which is an area A in the schematic. Text 17 is a ring number, which I will explain a little more later. And it also leads off a dense group of inscriptions that include text 17 through 56, which was in that list of 56 dates that I told you about. And then text 11, which is in area C, a different side of the room, is an array of what's called long round numbers that use ritual calendar dates, such as 1 Kawak, 9 Kan, 13 Chichang. So we'll, get to each one of these in sequence. So I've made this text 11 and highlighted in red to start with the number array, what's the long round number array on the north wall, which is that area C we just looked at. This is a picture of what the texts actually look like on the upper left. They're colored, they're very faint. They found that by transitioning to black and white imagery, you had a stronger image in terms of how to represent this in terms of the numbers, and then on the lower left they redrew them. So in the Science in 2012, Saturno et al. With Tony Avini, some of you know him or his work, they studied the intervals in the long round and in relation to the planets, and they ended up saying that Mars was probably very important for 780 days works very nicely with the 260-day calendar being 3 times that. So that was an easy interval, and column B on the left is a multiple of the 584-day calendar. And I've just corrected one of the note figure 16, column A should be a slightly different number than was recorded. Not in Avini and Saturno et al. Didn't make the mistake. It was the people who attempted to make this, republish this table, and they made a mistake in terms of the numbers. But it's easier to look at. So text 11 is the array of long round numbers, essentially counting intervals, as we've just seen in its area C. And this is what they found. that column A in text 11 is now recognized as a multiple of the 819-day cycle. Linden and Bricker noted that 20 times this encodes the synodical periods of all the visible planets. If one uses the whole number equivalents, such as Mars, 780 days, Venus, the 585 rather than 84, but it is interesting that, again, they were interested in whole numbers. So this year I came out with, or this actually just got the hard copy, but in my 2025 Mexicon publication, I noted that the last column, column D, is also the one that has on the far right of the drawing, is also had a previously unrecognized relationship to the actual Jupiter periods with a synodical cycle of 398.9 days. So this is an incredibly long span of time, but they were dividing it by essentially something very close to the synodical cycle of Jupiter, which I think is clear evidence that they were interested in Jupiter. The next text, and we'll see Jupiter comes up repeatedly. The text 50 in area A is the next one we will. Oh no, sorry, we're doing text 8, which is April 30th, 762. In the array you see here again, it's the number 8 in the middle of the diagram, right next to the ruler, and that's the date associated with the ruler. And what I found in my research is that it's the precise conjunction date of Saturn and Mercury in Aries, and the precise conjunction of Venus and Mars in Pisces. I'm using the sky map here, so you might not be able to see, but they're actually one on top of each other. And this is so precise that it's incredible. Here's the sky map as it was represented in the original planetarium program I used, which might be a little easier to see. And there are other events going on, but it's interesting that the text talks about a dance event, and I have argued that this is the dance event is the dance of the planets, moving back and forth until they're finally clutching each other like dancers. Now we turn to the lunar table, which is text 50. It would be on the right-hand side here where you see the numbers 17 to 56. It's one of that array, a very dense array of texts. The lunar table has 27 columns, of each representing 177 or 178 days, for a total of 4,784 days. Like the address in the eclipse table that I kind of opened up for you earlier, the Postclassic table, the lunar table is really the same intervals are represented, but it's not an eclipse table because it lacks the intervals of 148 days that are needed to predict eclipses. The 177 and 178 day periods refer to what's called lunar semesters, comprised of 6 months each. When Avini and Saturno and David Stewart published this finding in the Journal of History of Astronomy, they cited me for noting that 4,784 days also equals 12 synodical periods of Jupiter. It was a little footnote. It wasn't, it was like, oh, by the way, I think it's rather central, actually. 12 synodical periods of Jupiter is very close to the Xulunth interval. So what we have with text 50 is a table equating 27 lunar semesters with 12 synodical periods of Jupiter, showing the commensuration of the two cycles. So now we turn to text 17, which is the lead-off on the right-hand side of this dense area of text. The text 17 is what's called a ring number, and that gives you intervals, essentially. Not a long count date, but it uses the same format of numbers. The ring number is 4, 15, 5, 14, which is 34,314 days, and it's a multiple of the eclipse half year, which is 173.3 days. It was originally, this ring number was originally interpreted as an interval counting back from the era base to reach a date in the distant past, but there was no era base given, so the text could be used for other forms of calculations. Abini et al. In 2013 demonstrated the ring number is designed for calculations using the interval of 33,414 days, which is about 91.5 years, that relates to the eclipse half year, because it approximates the whole number of the eclipse half year, with only 1 day error over a century, almost a century. Another text in that dense array is the Three Stones text that Ross and Stewart proposed marks a date in March 17, 761, because they think they see evidence for another dot, but there's no dot there. It's just that they thought there's room for a dot. I believe it actually reads as 9/15/10/06, which is June 30th, 741, when Venus was at the second stationary point on June 29th, 1 day off, and that Jupiter and Mars were in conjunction in Pisces. My research suggests that the ring number functions much like a distance number to reference a count forward for 91 years from a recorded long count date in text 43, dated June 30th, 741, to June 7th, 835. And you can see the math on the right is kind of the way you would add it if you were doing Maya calendrics. This interval, the ring number, links the century-long eclipse, too long, century-long eclipse cycle with the stationary points of Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. In other words, when they're either about to move backwards or about to move forwards. There are two stationary points, as you all know, I'm sure. Text 43 reads as 9/15/10/06 and marks the second stationary point of Venus. As Gian Mias has given me tables that helped me to calculate this, adding that amount 4/15/5/14 to 9/15/10/06 counts forward to June 7th, 835, which is precisely the first stationary point of Jupiter and 1 day before the second stationary point of Saturn. I don't think this is a coincidence. Bricker et al. Recently recognized that the opening glyph in text 46 represents a lunar eclipse, and that the 611/6 distance number is close to 61 lunations. And then they reconstructed a long count date with a 3 Ben, which is a Tolkien or calendar Tolkien calendar date, and found it was closest to a visible lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse date is only 1 day off the date in their calculations that seems to best fit with their reading of the central column as a reference to a lunar eclipse in Orion, which is known as the Three Stone Place, actually, in the Maya text. So this is incredibly, precise in a way. In my 2025 publication, I proposed that the date is 9/15/10/06, and that it can be linked with the ring number, as I've just shown you, with the calculations that we saw previously. So this is, I think, my last slide, and I'm going to, depending on the time, take a little more time. These are the inscribed dates that are recognized as important in the calendrics so far. They haven't done all the dates, but these are the ones that were published in Franco Rossi's dissertation. And so if we look at the topmost date in 762, April 30th, 762, Venus and Mars were in precise conjunction in Pisces. Saturn and Mercury were in precise conjunction in Aries. Jupiter was in retrograde in Sagittarius. The next date, 749, is associated with the seated Scorpion king. And Jupiter and Saturn were in Scorpius. Essentially, the king was wearing Scorpius on his back. If we go to May 22nd, 761, the next date in the chart, Jupiter was in retrograde. If we go to May 24th, 761, it was the full moon in Sagittarius. November 17th, 759, Saturn was again in retro. Mercury and Venus were in precise conjunction at the edge of Scorpius, and Jupiter and the moon were in conjunction in Virgo. October 9th, 788, Jupiter was in retro again in Taurus this time. Mercury was at maximum altitude, which is, that's hard to even visualize because, we all have trouble seeing Mercury, right? They apparently knew when its maximum altitude would take place. And Mercury and Venus were in precise conjunction in Virgo. And then the last date in their chart, the one that Rossi used, was March 17, 761. He erroneously put the Gregorian date, but we all know that in astronomy you use Julian calendar dates. So he was, I think, trying to make a point that it was an equinox date, but the equinox is actually not that important to the Maya, as far as we know. So the March 17, 761 date, Moon and Mars were in conjunction in Gemini. Mercury was at maximum altitude, 3 days off in this case. Jupiter was in retro in Scorpius. And, so that's fairly interesting. But if you take the date and say, no, I read it with one less Katun cycle, as I've suggested, 9, 15, 10, 0, 6, then you get June 30th, 741. Venus was at its second stationary point. Jupiter and Mars were in Pisces. There seems to be a pattern of dates in several of which coincide with the precise conjunction of planets. And Jupiter in retrograde seems to be of interest in two long count dates recorded in the middle of the table, corresponding to retrograde in May of 761, and the next year it was in retrograde in 762, corresponding to the date at the top of the column of this table. Jupiter's sidereal cycle of 4,332.5 days is just 50.5 days short of 12 years. So it spends 1 year in each of our 12 constellations, but the Paris Codex, which we didn't really go into, I just showed you one image that showed the Scorpion. It actually has 13 constellations, and Orion is a turtle with 3 stones on its back. So we know the constellations, and now it's kind of up to us to go one step further and say, do we have something like the Chinese zodiac, where Jupiter spends 1 year in each of the constellations according to Chinese belief? And so we might have something like that going on in the Maya area as well. Well, I think I'm done. It really is just fascinating how much information is available in this one room. Of all the rooms that have ever been found, it's the most interesting in terms of astronomy, because we know the room is called Los Sabios, which is the priests or knowledgeable people, and it's because they've never found anything like this before. It is a unique find, and I've spent years, more than 20 years, struggling with it, trying to show people, how important astronomy is in the Maya texts, and, it's sometimes interesting to them, but mostly they care about the history. So-and-so killed so-and-so, and a battle was waged here and there, and the thing is that astronomy is astrology to the Maya, so they were interested in really precise astronomical events that are only now starting to be recognized. All right, thank you.
Could it have been that through their observations they were observing planets in retrograde?
Oh, yes, that's certainly going on, and the dance part, the Maya epigraphers like that. They, for some reason, think it's cool, you know. But it's quite a visual thing, you know, where the planets go back and forth, and so I believe that is a dance of sorts.
And weren't the missionaries that came to the conquistadors, they burned a lot.
Yeah, there are only 3 Mayan books left, and that's because they were Bishop Landa, or he was then a friar, burned most of the books. And one of the reasons we have any information about the Maya at the time of conquest is the Spanish government and religious institutions did not want him to do that. They got mad at him and said, okay, you're going to sit down and you're going to write everything that you can find out about these people. Because in central Mexico, that wasn't the case. Friar Bernardino de Sahagún actually wrote down almost everything he could find. He had all of the advice, and actually the scribes were all Nahuatl Aztec speakers, and they wrote down 12 volumes of work. But for the Maya, we have one little thin volume that was what Landa was going to be able to get out of people who probably didn't like him at all, because there's some point at which he wants them to give him the alphabet. Well, they didn't have an alphabet like ours. They didn't have, you know, specific letters. They had sounds. You know, they made kind of rebus writing or sometimes phonetic writing, but so he asked one of the informants, where, you know, what does a certain sound, or what does a certain image mean? And the guy answered, I don't want to. And that's what he wrote down. But
This fascinates me from I guess a code breaking exercise.
Yeah, oh yeah. It is.
And I'm curious, is there anyone in academia that has thought of looking into this from maybe a cryptology or number theory?
There are whole schools of epigraphers, they're called, who have, since Knorosov was a Russian scholar who first began to identify what he thought were phonetic sounds in the 1950s. But of course, because we were, you know, at war with Russia in some sense or another for the longest time, nobody in the U.S. listened to him, and it wasn't accepted. But finally, when Michael Coe married a Russian woman, and she introduced him, you know, to some of this work, which was all in Russian, he actually wrote a book, I think it's called Cracking the Maya Code. And there's a whole school of epigraphers now, but they've gotten where they don't know anything about astronomy, and they they don't necessarily want to, you know, because this way they tell their story, whatever it is they want to say, you know, but they can't ignore books like this, and they can't ignore this newly discovered text. And so, fortunately, I think things are changing, and they realize you can't set aside astronomy because it's so important.
It seems like they were writing ephemeris tables before we even knew what it was.
Yes, exactly.
Well, just a fascinating topic. I'm sure there's loads of information. Where can we find more? Yeah.
Well, you can. It's been pirated by the Russians, so I put it online. And you know, you can still buy a hard copy of Star Gods of the Maya from University of Texas Press, and there's of course Amazon. But I have an academia.edu site, which is a lot of academics use to exchange information or download articles that they're allowed to do. But I put the book on there because I'm like, hey, it's out there anyway, you know. So you can get it for free if you want a digital version, which I use quite often because it's like, oh, where did I say that? And I'll just like search the word and up it comes.
Handy, right?
Well, awesome. Well, as a token of appreciation, we want to make sure around here is kind of tradition to present you with our thanks in form of a AAC mug. It's a little bit different this year. We try to highlight some of our own astrophotography in that, so we have
All right, thank you.
space and time. And thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty.
You know what, Matt,
Yes, sir.
at one of the next meetings that I host, I'd like to get some of the dates from this particular
Ah,
session
that would be
and put them
interesting.
on the Chrono.
And pull them up.
And then
Okay.
because I was sitting in the office listening, I was going, oh, I can put that date up there. and
Write
that
down.
date up there.
Awesome.
The Chronoscope.
We'll be.
No, I think it would make a nice program.
Excellent. Very cool.
It's new and
Well, if you need a reference to where those dates are, I saw it mentioned during the presentation. Somebody asked if we could post this online. So anybody that doesn't know, the club does have a YouTube channel. This will be posted here in the next week or so. I got to take some time and edit those things. So if you'd like to review those dates and get your homework done, you'll see them up on our YouTube channel. A couple of the quick little things that are coming up. I want to remind everybody about Chiefland this Saturday, the AAC sale on the 4th, and then our next monthly meeting will be back here on April 14th. But thank you everybody for coming out. Have a good night, and we'll see you next month.